Hey, what's up, guys and gals? It's time for Rauta and Indie 5. Quickly going through 5 different albums, as always. We'll start with a Japanese band called Invictus and the Catacombs of Fear. This one came without the backside of Thin Laser, which is pretty much booklet and CD, what we have here. But rest assured, this is all that we need for a review this time. This is a 3-man band from Japan, which you probably figured out if you took a glimpse on that band picture here. Now, a band called Invictus, which is still founded in quite late in 2000s, is not the most innovative name because there are lots of bands with the same name, and most of them are a lot older than this one. So I don't know, maybe they don't have a Google or metal archives in Japan. Well, anyway, this is old school death metal the American way. So Japanese band doing American kind of death metal. It's kind of a, I don't know, very traditional 1990s American death metal type, reminding me of a more darker side of death metal bands. More like akin to bands like, maybe not exactly Immolation, but to that direction anyway. Incantation maybe more closely. And, well, to be honest, this is very, very mediocre attempt at that. They have basically all the right ingredients, you know, the kind of a right kind of a sound, the kind of a growly vocals which appeal to the audience in death metal scene, and the kind of riffs that you need to have when in order to do a death metal album. But nothing original, nothing astounding, nothing mind-blowing is here. It's not bad, but then again, it's not really, you know, breaking the bomb here. It's just basic death metal, the American way, but with Japanese flavor. 30 minutes and then some. I think this is kind of hour-length demo attempt. Basically, getting there, but no cigar, not even close. We'll start more like keep going with the death metal from exotic countries. This one is from Indonesia, and it's called Exhumation. 11th, Formulae. This band has been there since 2008, so it's not very fresh, but still not too old either. And rest assured, once again, these are the type of names that are carried by many, many other bands. Unlike the Japanese ones, this is a duo. So 2 guys creating death metal. And once again, this is of old school style. This is more, maybe even more old school. This is more kind of a trash vibed death metal. So once again, very much maybe an 80s kind of death metal. They have all the right ingredients. Once again, a little bit different than Invictus, but still very much having the same kind of a set of problems. The sound is kind of like organic. It's very old school in that fashion. It's not one of those let's go full blown high production flawless plastic sound, but more like let's just do it a little bit raw and dusty and muddy, like straight out of the cellar. Unfortunately, these guys have the similar problems with the Japanese fellas. It's like they have the right kind of understanding and mindset to do death metal. They have the kind of vocals which are more like dead trash, not so growly, more like almost screamy, kind of like old school thrash metal. But the thing here is, while they have the kind of nice vocals, which are not too typical, and they have these riffs and ideas, and kind of a production that sets the values very much for old school, like, yeah, let's get it done. It's like none of these riffs are not that interesting. So kind of like easy to listen, but also easy to forget. Easy to just skip without losing anything special. I once again want to say this is very much like a lengthy demo, but maybe a little bit more improved and a little bit more original than these Japanese cousins. So, mediocre plus maybe. Something that's worthwhile listening to if you're into old school death metal with a burning heart. But for the rest, not so much. Third one is an interesting case which I asked specifically for review for a reason. Now, I'm a long time role player guy and long role playing fan, so obviously when a band mentions that it's an inspiration by Game of Thrones or Dungeons and Dragons and whatnot. I'm like, hey, I want to review that. Totally. Heavy metal and role-playing games are something like marriage made in heaven or hell, if that's your preference. So here we have Throne of Ayran. Clearly a Game of Thrones reference in a way, considering that the Iron Throne is the thing in the series or books. But this band claims to be sort of Manual Road inspired heavy metal band, which then again also draws its inspiration from Dungeons and Dragons and other fantasy role-playing games. Now, having been played Dungeons and Dragons since something like 1987 or something like that, I was like, hey, I gotta see this, I gotta listen to this band, and it should be something. Now, even the album is named Adventure 1, and it starts with the kind of introduction which you are familiar with in role-playing games. I'm like, okay, this is gonna be so great. And unfortunately, it's not. Now, the thing is, this is kind of a fun project. This is a heavy metal, very traditional way. That's kind of nice. Now, I also like the kind of spoken parts in the middle of the album, like between songs, when you mentioned like roll initiative, I'm like, yay, there you have it. But it doesn't fly. To me, this is like, I don't know, some third level barbarian bard slash priest character who just got killed because it couldn't beat the traps. Maybe it had too few hit points, maybe it failed a saving throw, but I don't know. To be honest, this is too much of kind of with a good idea but not so good in execution. Production wise, kind of okayish, but the biggest flaw is that most of the riffs, the songwriting in general, is not that great. And on top of that, I really don't enjoy the vocalist here. I know he's probably trying to give everything here. I mean, there's lots of passion in a way, but it's not that well done. And unfortunately for you guys, if you're watching this, that is the band guys, please do continue. I want to hear more epic role-playing, heavy metal, but something needs to be done with those vocals. I desperately wanted to like this album so much, but in my opinion, it just ends up being very, very mediocre one. Much like so many Dungeons and Dragons modules, that is adventures, back in the 80s. Like, yeah, nice attempt to do an interesting experience, an adventure with some random kobolds and goblins, but you need to have more than that. Then the fourth stop in this Indie 5 is black metal from Canada. This is Burial Shrine with Labyrinth of Bridges. It sounds also rather role-playing kind of a title, to be honest. But this is something like post-war metal thing. One could even claim that this is something from the school of blasphemy, you know, kind of a death black, something like that. But now this is on vinyl version. Now, why now in vinyl version needs to be mentioned is that actually I reviewed this in 2018 in a dual review style. Back then it was a CD, but now this is released on vinyl by the Clandestine Common. Not much has changed really. Obviously, the music is the same. It's kind of a crappy production with so much fast tempo, Black Death parts, and kind of a poor man's blasphemy. Now, there are growly vocals, there are screamy vocals, and to be honest, neither of them are really good. And on top of that, kind of a weak guitar sound, which reminds me of early Graveland with its kind of a weak, almost like old school rock and roll guitar sound, and I'm talking about 50s and stuff like that. So Burial Shrine is like a band with a style set up in their heads and all that stuff. And originally this was, if I understood correctly, supposed to be a demo, but it ended up a full-length album. To be honest, if I was the label, I would say, yes, please make the demo first and make sure you have what it takes when it comes to not only songwriting, but obviously the production as well, and those vocals, and the sound. Now everything is like too sloppy, very, very mediocre mediocre release in terms of Black Death war metal worship. But you have to start somewhere. Now, the last one. Last one is from Australia, and it's old school death metal. This one is called Faceless, Burial, and Grotesque, Miscreation. This was actually originally released sometimes in 2018. Got it quite late. And okay, now it seems that the inlay paper is kind of stuck and already damaged. So old school death metal from Australia is the name of the game, with some 33 minutes or so. And the good thing is, it's old school in a very, very old-fashioned, traditional way. Deep crawly vocals, muddy guitar sound, very heavy, brutal, kind of a mid-tempo, and just no gimmicks, no bullshit, no keyboards, no female singing, no spoken samples, no trigger drums, no anything of modern fashion. The downside of it, well, this is something you probably heard hundreds and hundreds times before. Already in the 90s, this kind of stuff was right there in so many compilations, in so many albums that you're like, okay, this is kind of a neat, but it's not that great. It's like a demo. And unfortunately so, Faceless Burial debut album is very much like that. It's something like these guys could be a thing after, I don't know, a couple of albums more. But with this is like recycled stuff. Very, very basic death metal. Muddy, dark, growly, and that's it. Sorry, but I gotta say, this is very, very mediocre. Unless you're an old school death metal fanatic and you just need to have that 1991 sound and feeling, then this is for you. But other than that, go for a sale if you need it. But obviously, samples are online. Go check it out, and that's it. And this concludes our Indie 5 here. See you next week.